I'm so incapable of handling difficult things. I cannot do hard things. I'm just not good enough to be like other people. I'll never make that kind of money. I'm not a good mom. I'm not smart enough. Do these sound like familiar thoughts and ideas that you have going through your mind? If so, you are most likely having limiting beliefs and struggling with self doubt and worthiness issues, not feeling enough. Welcome to Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I'm Kim Gross, your host. And today, drum roll, I'm so excited because I have a special guest. And this guest is Coach Yves, my boxing coach. Talk about limiting beliefs, right? I just said to you on Sunday when we were done, I said, that was pretty good for a 56-year-old woman. And what was your response? Do you remember?
What did I say?
You said, age ain't the thing,
Nothing but a
right?
number. That's right.
It's putting a limit on myself. There's an underlying nuance to that. If I'm 56, 56-year-olds shouldn't be able to box, or
Right.
I'm 56 years old and I have a chronic illness. If I allowed those thoughts, those beliefs to sink in, I wouldn't even be there boxing with you. My boxing coach, Yves, I'm so excited to have you here. And you have so many accolades. I'm super impressed. Honestly, I don't think you could do all of what you do if you struggled and from a limiting mindset. Welcome to the show. And I would love for you to share with the listeners a little bit about yourself. Tell us what all that you do.
Let's see. I don't want to take up the whole time just talking about all the things that I do. For starters, what I'm going to label myself is I am a person that loves to live life on purpose. That's who I am to begin with. What I mean by that is I embrace meeting people, interacting with people, doing things that I'm curious about. We have this wonderful life to live with so many different cultures, so many different people, so many different things. And there's no reason why I need to limit myself with what the world has to offer. I am an engineer at NASA and I own several businesses. I own an entertainment business. I own a gym, right? Obviously, is Kim's boxing coach, which I one of my favorite things to do on Sundays. I also run a nonprofit to help folks with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism, veterans, and women who have suffered domestic violence. I have a vending machine business where I try to provide healthy alternatives to folks, the community. And one of my favorite things to do is being a life coach as well. And that is all about peeling that onion of a mind of folks and helping them to live their best lives. And
I
that is who I am.
I love that. Here's my first question for you. Obviously, I know you, and just listening to all the things that you do in your life, you're also a dad, right? You have three.
I'm a husband, I'm an author. I can
Yeah,
keep going on.
exactly. And here's where I think for people that are listening, here's where we can easily get caught in having a negative mindset or limiting thoughts. And it almost becomes automatic. So I've said to you, when you've told me all the things you do, and even when I read it again in your bio, I said to myself, oh my God, I would be exhausted. You must have the magic sauce because you can do all those things and have this endless amounts of energy, and I could never. Now, maybe it is true, it's not in my constitution to have that kind of energy. Like we also live on purpose, as you said, and live in alignment with our essence. And so maybe it is true that part of my essence or my soul's purpose is not to do all those things. That's not the point. My point is look where my mind goes to, look where my
Right.
thoughts go to. And I think
100%.
that's what I want the listener to be hearing in this example is how quickly and automatic our thoughts are running the show. And we have this inner dialogue of this barrage of negative thoughts, negative thinking. Any thoughts
Right.
on that?
It is truly my belief that we are all born with an inner coach. Everybody has the magic sauce. You just have to choose to use it, right? Think of it as you have all these things in your pantry that you can use to cook your best life. The magic sauce is mindset. It's a choice that I am making, right? To think a certain way, to apply myself a certain way, just to be, right? And like you said in the beginning, if I am in the mindset that I am going to limit myself, or I look at something and I say, I could never do that. I could never be like this. Now, let me say this, there is a fine line between preferences and abilities. For example, if somebody says they want to go camping in Antarctica, hey, have fun. That is something that I am choosing not to do. It has nothing to do with limiting beliefs that I couldn't do it. It has everything to do with a preference. I just choose, I don't care for the cold. And so we have to be careful about balancing what it means, what's limiting, right? Because you have to be able to make a choice, right? You're confident in, I like this, or I don't like this, or this is what I choose. But at the same time, you have a certain way that you look at yourself, like you see somebody who's, for example, is successful, who started a business, who does a certain workout or engages in something, and you look at it and say, oh my gosh, I could never do that. The funny thing is, you're saying that in awe, wow, I can't believe that person did that, when you automatically place yourself in a position where you're literally coaching yourself into the belief that could never be me. That's where I feel we lose ourselves, because we place a label on what we think we're worth or what our capabilities are. When you look at something and say, if they can do it, I can do it, then you approach things differently. Now you're curious, like, okay, what did they do? How did they do that? I want to be able to do that too. So, what are the things that I need to do to put myself in that position to be able to do that? When we have that kind of mindset, that's the secret sauce. It's all about the mindset. When you have that kind of mindset, you're unstoppable.
So
You're getting out of your own way.
you're getting out of your own way. The thing that trips us up all the time is that we get in our own way and we self sabotage all the time. So you mentioned something about the inner coach, and you and I talked about this on Sunday,
Mhm.
the inner coach. I would love for you to explain to the listeners how you came up with that and what does that mean and how is that a great tool to use?
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're asking that, Kim, because I want to expand on that a little bit. In reality, we have two coaches. Life is all about choices, right? You're going to have a coach that is more fear based, the coach that's going to say, hey, don't do this. You're not being smart. You're going to get hurt. You're going to fail. You got to be careful. Not that there's anything wrong with being cautious, right? Making sure that you're thinking things through and not just flying off the handle, so to speak. And then you have a coach that is more growth focused, right? That is, hey, you are a resourceful person, right? You are the kind of person that you're going to figure it out. You're going to go find the resource that you need to do. You're going to build the relationships that you need to build so that you can get things done, because that's just who you are. When you can label yourself as this capable person, you're coaching yourself for growth, right? You are your biggest cheerleader. You're telling yourself, I believe in you. I believe in us. And then we take away things like fear, because of the fear of failure, because we know, hey, if it doesn't work out like we intended, we're learning something from this. We're going to
Yeah.
grow from this. We're going to be able to do things, have an experience that can be beneficial to you down the line or beneficial to somebody else. So there's always a plus, there's always a silver lining, there's always something good to come out of that. But you got to make the choice with which coach you're going to go with. And if your coach is holding you back, is keeping you from doing the things you want to do, the things that you're curious about, the things that in the back of your mind you feel you are capable, but they're telling you, no, you're not. No, it's too risky. It's too dangerous. They're holding you back from something you just yearning to go
Mm.
do. And hence you lose the opportunity.
Yeah. So I would love to break this down even further. For myself, and I think for many people who are probably listening, particularly people that have perfectionistic tendencies, that I grew up living in fear. I lived in fear around everything. When things happened to me as a child, I didn't have that nurturing adult come and say, "You're okay." For example, when I was 5, I was playing with my cousins. We were playing house, making dinner. We had grass, we had some pine tree needles, we had all these things, and it was all on the plate. And I go to take this piece of pine needle that was on my plate that we had picked off the tree, and I went to pretend to eat it. But I actually, by mistake, inhaled and I swallowed it. I was choking on it. I was in the house. I was throwing up blood. My mom was there. My mom was screaming, "Somebody help. She can't. She's choking. She's bleeding." I remember all the adults just freaking out. One of my aunts was like, "Give her some bread, give her some milk." Nothing would stop it from, it was still lodged. Nothing would push it down or have it come up. And then finally, my father, he just grabbed me and he was going to take me and rush me to the hospital. And as we were running out the door, it finally came up and came out. And then I stopped choking. My point is, that was a very tragic event that happened. That was trauma for me. I literally felt like I was going to die. And after that incident, not one single adult came to me and said, "Are you okay?" Oh my goodness, that must have been so scary. They just went on like business as usual. And that's not to judge anybody. It's just that a lot of adults and parents in that generation and before didn't have the wherewithal necessarily to even think, "Oh my God, this child must be so scared. Let me go and reassure her that she's okay now." And those kinds of situations would happen very frequently throughout my life. And a lot of people that go through traumatic events and have trauma may not have that inner sense of safety. So when you were talking, or we talk about having that fear part that says, "I shouldn't step outside my comfort zone. I shouldn't take that risk because life is scary. The world is scary and I can't handle it. I'm not capable of handling it because I learned when I was a kid that I wasn't strong enough or capable. And the adults in my life didn't tell me that I was strong enough." So when you have that kind of trauma and that type of reinforcing behavior of, "I can't handle things," or "I'm not good enough," or "I'm not worthy," and that messaging happens day after day, week after week, and you don't have that inner coach that's strong and can say, "I can do it." It is something that you have to build, no doubt, and you can build it. Absolutely, you can build or grow that strong inner coach. But what would you say to the listener who doesn't even know? Where does one even begin to cultivate that?
I would tell you to reframe it. I would tell you to look at yourself and say, wow, all the things that I've been through, look at me, I am here. Oh my God. There is nothing that can stop me.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I don't know that I needed somebody to come tell me that, to ask me if I'm okay, because I am okay.
Yeah.
And there's part of that is an inner validation. In other words, a lot of times we are community driven, right? And so it's, we want to be accepted by the community. We want to be part of a group, of a family of people. We first must be the strongest at our core.
Mm.
And in that way, no matter which body of people you connect with, you are always strong. Let me say it this way, right? You, as a singular particle, you are strong by yourself, right? If you detach, and no matter where you go, it's always great to be part of a community, but that doesn't take your strength away.
Yeah.
Because at your core, you are always, you're solid.
Yeah.
You're solid, you're balanced, and you got to be able to reframe things and say, if I'm Kim right now, I would say, man, all the things that I've been through my life, look at where I am right now, today, what I'm doing, how I'm helping to inspire people, how I'm using these things that happened to me, right, to help others overcome. I'm going to call it a mental anguish, right? Things that have
Mm.
been eating them at their core, what their coach has been telling them for years, and they don't know how to be any different. So kudos to you. You should be so proud of yourself that all those things you went through as a child, look at you today.
Thank you.
You're strong. You are
Yeah.
amazing. You are resilient. You are going to figure it out.
Yeah, thank you. I love that you said that because that's exactly what I did in my journal. So I'll
Mhm.
continue to share for the listener so they understand. So what I did was I said, is it true? This is Byron Katie's work, right? Working with limiting beliefs. And so I said, is it true that I'm incapable of handling difficult situations? No, it's not true. Then I wrote down the evidence. So I survived swallowing that pine needle. I
Mhm.
survived breaking a collarbone. I survived having Sjogren's. I almost died giving birth to my daughter. I survived that. Every scary event that took place in my life. What I used to feel is that I was small, powerless, helpless, and afraid. And I would tend to go into panic and feel anxious. I would catastrophize. I would go to worst case scenario. I would abandon myself and I would abandon the present moment. I would go into what ifing in the future. And I allowed my past to dictate my present moment. Now, from all of the inner work that I have done on myself over the years, I can go to that place of reframing and say,
Mhm.
I am strong, I am capable. Here's what's now possible and what is evident in my life today, which is that I am calm. I am at ease. I'm peaceful. I'm present. I am resilient. I am powerful. And you can tell them that I am because you
Mhm.
box.
Yeah, it scared me sometimes.
And I'm thoughtful. I feel alive and I'm grateful. And I can handle any challenge or difficulty that
Right.
comes my way. There was a long bridge from where I used to be to where I am today. I've done a lot of work to get there. But now the hope is using a platform like this podcast and even what you're sharing and helping the listener to understand is that there is a different way. And it's this reframing and changing your mindset. And it's a muscle, right? It's a muscle that you have to build and you have to work at. So, do you want to speak to that a little bit? It's not just, oh, okay, one day you just wake up and you just change your mind and you're like all of a sudden
Yeah.
rainbows and sunshines and unicorns and you're good.
So there's a few things I'm going to say about that. Reframing is beautiful, especially when it's that fear-based coach that is constantly talking to you and holding you back. In essence, you have to pick the time where you tell them to shut up.
Yeah.
Stop. I don't believe you. And we're talking about limiting beliefs, right? It's all about what you believe. That there's a saying that if you think you can't, you're right. If you think you
Mm,
can, you're right.
mm.
You're right, no matter which way you think about it, because that's what's going to drive what you do. In one of my books, Impactful Perspective, I talk about WFA, right? Words, feelings, and actions, right? Is what WFA stands for. The words that you hear, the words that you speak, it creates a feeling and drives actions. And then the question is it going to be a good or bad thing? One of the things that folks need to understand is there's good and bad trauma, right? There's bad trauma. I just got into a car accident. Somebody spit on me. I lost $100. Somebody stole my purse, bad trauma. There's good trauma. My child was just born. I just bought my first house. I just got a new job. I just had my first kiss, all kinds of good things. Now, the body processes those things like the exact same way. And in the same way, you can sit there and remember when I was 5 years old, here's where I was, here's what I was doing. It's almost like you can remember all those things,
To the
little as
T.
detail. And it is something that sticks with you because at that point, there's a belief that was formed and that drove how you would go
Mm,
about doing certain things all the way into your adulthood. Who doesn't remember their wedding day, right? The day their child was born and things like that. And you can almost speak to those things in detail and you have certain feelings about it. It's going to drive what kind of actions you put behind those things.
Hey, it's Kim here, interrupting your regularly scheduled podcast episode to let you know about an opportunity to go deeper into this work. I invite you to head over to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of my book, Free to Be: A Pathway to Inner Liberation. If you are looking to unhook from people pleasing and perfectionistic patterns, if you're looking to have a better way of identifying your patterns and then how you can unhook so you can be free to step outside your comfort zone, free to have more meaningful relationships in your life, free to be your true self without hiding behind a mask any longer. If you desire any of this, then I encourage you to pick up your copy. And if you enjoy my book as much as I loved writing it, please go on over and leave a review on Amazon. You can leave a star review or written review. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode.
Going back to the idea that you have this inner coach, you have to make a choice as to which one you're going to listen to. You got to think of your coach as your navigation system. Because in life, what's going to happen is you got to think of your coach as the person sitting in the background driving you as a person. Your coach is going to tell you, go left, go right, go over, go under. Listen to the way you speak to yourself. It's going to make you feel some kind of way about yourself. And it's going to allow you to keep moving forward no matter what. You will literally be unstoppable. You're not going to let this obstacle, this event, this trauma stop you as a person.
Yeah, 100%. What I think I want to add into that is for me personally, and I'm just sharing from my own experience, that even though I've had all this transformation in my life, it isn't a perfect straight up the hill type of path. I still take a step backward sometimes, one step back, two steps forward, or I'll go back to the old pattern of worrying, catastrophizing, and all of that. For example, the listeners know that I have an autoimmune disease and I deal with these chronic health issues from time to time. And lately, they've been kicking up a little bit more again. I was not doing well, I was doing better, and they've been kicking up. And I noticed I went into my old pattern first. And that's what I help people to do is I help them to recognize their old patterns and when their patterns show up and then how to unhook from their patterns or take off the mask. And so I realized this morning was one of those days. I woke up, I wasn't feeling well, I didn't feel well last night. I went into the pity party, like, what is going on? I don't understand. I'm never going to get better. It was like all this barrage of negative thinking. I was like, blah, blah, blah. It was like really bad. And then what I realized, okay, so what were my, you with your WF, my words initially were very negative. They were depressing. It was just like limiting, very limiting. Life is never going to get better for Kim in terms of her health issues. What did that make me feel? It made me feel sad. It made me feel depressed. It made me feel hopeless. It made me feel frustrated. It made me feel angry, more tired, more exhausted, overwhelmed, all these feelings. What were my actions? I just became immobile, paralyzed. And then I paused. And then I realized what was happening. I saw my pattern. Then I did a reframe. I brought in my adult self because it was really like my inner child that was feeling so scared again, just like the 5-year-old did who was choking on the pine needle. The feeling was so similar. Fear that I had. So it was like, okay, so then I just brought my adult self in because you were saying earlier, we need to be there for ourselves. Yes, we live in community. Yes, we have people. Yes, it's beautiful if someone can show up for you and be tender and be gentle and nurturing. Kim, I'm so sorry you're having such a hard time. That would be beautiful. But
Right.
people are living their lives and they don't always and can't always show up for you in the way that you need at the moment that you need it. Who can? Moi. I can show up for
Yes,
me, right? I can
100%.
show up for me. So what did I do? I just closed my eyes and I relaxed my whole body, took some deep breaths, and I said to my part of myself, like you said, the inner coach just came online,
Mhm.
said to the fear part of myself, it's okay. This must be really hard for you. You must be having such a hard time. I see that you are struggling with it and it's okay. It was almost like I was holding myself. And as I did that, I even got teary and I cried a little bit, but we're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. This is just a day. Tomorrow's another day, or this is just a moment. And as I did that, I didn't necessarily feel better physically, but I felt better overall, right? Like I was back into that more calm, empowered state. I felt reassured. I was connected to the moment, connected to the universe. I just had this sense of, okay, everything is okay.
Yeah. I love what you said there because a process that I always have in mind for anybody, and I'm going to tag on to what you said, is the first step is awareness. So you knew, oh my gosh, my pattern, what is going on here? That point right there is so critical because if you have an opportunity to realize it soon and you can start to work to get yourself out of that is great. It's always bad when you're stuck in that loop and it just gets worse and worse. So first it's awareness, then reframing. You're going to rewrite the script. What are we seeing here? It's easy. You can take two people, take a negative person and tell them to look outside. They'll tell you, man, look at all those gnats flying around. The grass needs to be cut. The tree branch is hanging over there. I can't believe it looks like you talked about that in the beginning. The way things it has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, you're going to find all the little faults in it. Another person can sit there and look out and say, my God, the sun is out, birds flying around. The grass is not perfect, but does it need to be perfect? There's little squirrels running around, hanging off the branch of the tree. I can hear traffic. I can see planes flying in the sky. Man, life is good. I get to be alive another day. I get to enjoy this world thing. It's two different perspectives from looking at something so simple. And part of that is feeding the right voice, like we talked about. There's the fear that talks to you, and then there's the growth coach that talks to you, right? And you have to make a choice as to who you're going to listen to. The next part, which I feel is super, super important, is the micro wins, right? Giving yourself like some kudos for something. What did you get to do? What was good about this day? When you can recognize those things too, when you make it a habit to see the good, the positive, the wins in anything that you do, then it takes your 10x's, 100x's your hope, your hopefulness. Even if you're having a terrible day, I can say, man, work was so stressful. I had to do this and this and this person that. Or I can say, today was so full of challenges. I learned so many things. I got to grow and contribute to whatever it is that my office is responsible for doing. When you can think like that, you're past the fact that you can have a bad day at work. You're fully aware, but your mindset, the secret sauce is you are going to, no matter what, make the best of that day. Regardless, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get to interact with people. So you got to look at those micro wins, right? And then get that injection of serotonin and that feel good because you were able to accomplish something. And in your case, you're not feeling good, you're having a bad day. It's easy to look at all the negatives. Today is tough, and it is, but you get to put that resilience, that strength into play. I'm going to watch you get through this day like you do any other time. When it's like that, it's okay. I know what's up. I know I have these days all the time, and it's not going to take me down.
And what you're saying, I want to highlight and underscore is a choice between living in victimhood versus freedom.
Yeah.
Do you want to have
Yeah.
freedom or do
Yeah.
you want to be a victim?
Yeah. I love that.
You
Love
just,
that.
and also you shared a quote and it's very similar to what you're saying. You don't have to control life. You just have to control what it means to you. And that's exactly what you're saying. You get to choose,
You get to define it.
define it.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
by the example you gave, you can look out your backyard and see all the work you have to do, or
Right.
you can look outside and see the birds or the sky is blue. I have this beautiful place to live. I have a roof
Right.
over my head. I'm so grateful. Gratitude, truly.
Yeah. You could even look at it and say, okay, no, yep, I know I got to do this and I got to do that. And this yard is going to look perfect by the time I'm
Yep.
done with it. Woo, I can't wait, you know?
There's still going to be naysayers. There's still going to be people who are going to listen to this and say, okay, all well and good, coach, all well and good, Kim. You guys are on the fairy dust or whatever. You don't understand what my life is like. My life just sucks, or whatever they're thinking to themselves and saying. Do you have advice for that person?
What do you have to lose?
Mm,
What do you have to lose?
mm,
If you can answer that question, what do you have to lose by just thinking different? Just try it.
yeah,
What exactly is it going to cost you? When I say try it, I don't mean fake the funks or go through
right.
the motions. I literally mean, when are you going to make the choice to stop losing yourself? When are you going to make the choice to stop getting in your own way? When are you going to understand that the life you have is a privilege? I remember many sessions ago coaching somebody, and the person was just talking about how miserable they are. People ask all the time, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? A lot of people wonder that. I often say, to me, life is, it's all about happy, right? Everything that you do, right? You do it because you feel it's going to bring you some sense of happiness. Everybody clings to what happy feels like. For example, if I worked really hard, right? And I worked 4 jobs, and one day here I am and I'm watching my daughter graduate from a school I couldn't afford. You think I'm really thinking about the work that I had to do to get her there? At the end of the day, what I'm clinging on to is this thought of feeling happy. And so if I apply that to everything, if I start with that as my foundation, I'm going to go to work because I need to pay my bills. I want to afford certain things. I want to afford certain luxuries of life, going on vacation, buying a car, doing whatever it is I'm going to do. If I, and you touched on it a little bit, right? This sense of gratitude, right? Is this sense of, I am so fortunate that I have what I have. And my mentality is, I'm going to make the best of it. Then I approach everything so much differently. It's easy to bask in the misery. This sucks. This is terrible, and all this other stuff, right? Because you're looking for somebody to save you. You're looking for everything on the outside except from within. All it is, you got to save yourself. You have to make the choice to put that secret sauce on your life, right? And change your mentality. What do you have to lose? If I think
Yeah.
like that, if I go about my life like that, what do I have to lose? More importantly, what do you think you're going to gain?
Yeah.
Freedom,
Yeah.
happiness, joy. You're going to live your best life.
1000%. One of the things I talk about on this show and I write about in my book is how we can go from prison of the mind to
Mhm.
paradise. We can be free in the sense of, let me see how I want to say this. As it pertains to the mind, you can take someone who is in actual prison, and if he or she is free in their mind, they're free. You can
Mhm.
take someone on the outside who's not in literal prison, but is in prison of the
Yeah.
mind. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So that's,
One, yeah.
and that's what you're speaking to. You can put someone who is outside of jail and is miserable, and they're so imprisoned by their thoughts, their beliefs, their behaviors, and compare that person side by side to someone who's in prison but has the freedom of the mind. That
Yeah.
person that's in actual prison is freer.
And to me, what you're saying right there is free yourself.
Yeah.
Free yourself. Don't lock yourself up in this mental place. Free yourself and open your eyes, your arms, your heart to
Mm.
the world, to all the things that are possible. The day you free yourself from your mental prison and take that first step out of, it'll be the most liberating thing that you can possibly feel.
Absolutely. And that's why my book is titled Free to Be. It's a pathway to
Of it.
liberation.
Yeah.
I have to ask two things before we wrap up. One
Mhm.
is, were you always this way, or was this something you had to learn? Were you always wired this way?
I'm going to say yes. Interestingly enough, I'm going to share a story with you. When I was a young kid, my family come from the islands, and I just remember everything was fried. If I wanted a hot dog, it would be one hot dog and a stick of butter. Everything was so delicious and it was great. Now, interestingly enough, where I come in the islands, if you were larger, it means that you got to enjoy the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you were thin, that means you're a hard worker, you barely get food, things like that. So that was a mentality. And one of the things that happened to me as a child is I remember one time my dad making a comment, "Oh my God, you're so fat, you're so
Mm.
big." And because it came from my dad, I felt like the entire world looked at me like that. Every time I made eye contact with someone, in my mind, they were thinking, "Man, you're fat." And Kim, I couldn't tell you exactly the point at which it clicked for me, but I just remember thinking to myself, so what? There are thin people, fat people, tall people, short people, Black people, Latin people. There are all kinds of people.
Mm.
For me, power really came in how I felt about myself. I started playing football. I ran track. After high school, I went into the Marine Corps and I truly enjoyed exercising and things like that, but not because I needed to change myself for all the people that were looking at me, because I wanted to feel good about me. I exercise because I love the way I feel. I love the way that the other thing I want to say about that too is one thing that is super important is people can't feel for you. So for me, it was never like, hey, look at me. Now you're happy for me. That means nothing to me. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Have a child, get married, get a job, buy a house, do this and that. And my friends are like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. And that is great. But how do I feel for
Exactly.
me?
Yeah,
How
that's
do
more
I
important.
feel for me?
Yeah.
100%. Why does it matter even what other people think? Because they're not living my life. They're not paying my bills. They don't have to go buy clothes for me. They don't. I had a very hard time answering that question. Why does it matter? For me, it was just like, I'm going to go on playing sports and joining the military. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with how good I felt.
Mm.
And that's where the coaching came. I felt so good that I wanted to share that with others. I wanted them to feel good about themselves. It's not always just about look at me physically, it's more so my abilities. What am I capable of doing? What am I able to do? How do I feel about that? And it literally stops right there. And then me, I'm a storyteller. I love telling story, hence writing books and doing all that fun stuff. And that's where it really just bubbled up into this thing where that was just my way of thinking. Now in life, I always feel like those things it's a 50-50. Someone could go through the same exact thing that I went through. And now they have daddy issues, low self-esteem, low confidence, and they're this and they're that. But the one thing that I want to point out is the choice that they make, WFA,
Mm.
right? Whatever that trauma is, that there's no difference between us except for the choice. I chose to not let that define who I was, fortunately for me. And then so everybody has that same opportunity. It's literally a choice. Ever since just living that way, thinking that way, my mentality being that way, hence where I'm at
Yeah.
today.
Which is freaking amazing. I feel, first of all, let me just say thank you to you because, like, I feel so uplifted, even more empowered. Again, as I said, I felt like shit all day long, and I mustered whatever to come on and do the interview because I was so excited to do this with you. Right now, I feel like I could go out and play tennis or I could box. I feel so good. Your way and your approach to life is inspiring. I feel very inspired by this conversation with you. I feel
Thank
uplifted. Your energy is so positive and giving. Honestly, like I'm just saying, people, if you want to change your mindset, if you're tired of living in this hamster wheel of doing the same thing over and
Yeah.
expecting a different result, and you want peace, you want freedom, you want joy, you want liberation. I'm telling you, I will have all of Coach's information in the show notes. I implore you to reach out because if you feel half as uplifted as I do, this is how I feel right now. I'm like, can we just talk for another 10 hours?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with me today.
Oh, I love that. Listen, and Kim, I always tell myself if I can help one person,
Yeah.
to me, it's all the worth. The lasting impacts that you can have on someone, helping them see different, do different, be different, live different. It is such an amazing thing. The many people that I've had the opportunity to coach, I honestly, it's really an honor to me because I feel so honored and privileged to have been part of their journey and to be able to help them
Yeah.
navigate through this thing called life in the best way possible. Even my nonprofit is called Rock in Life. I want you to rock your best life.
And I really feel that from you. I
Yeah.
feel that is so authentic and so genuine. And this is what this podcast is about. It's about taking off your masks and being your true self and being
Yeah.
authentic. Every part of you and every part of this conversation was authentic and real. And I just really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. It was my honor.
Thank you. As Coach said, just helping one person, if you help one person, it makes such a huge difference. So if you found this episode to be of value to yourself, then I invite you to pay it forward and share it with another. If you really liked it, you can subscribe on YouTube, leave a review on your favorite audio platform, and I will see you next time on Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.